Hey there, Sam Watts, Director of Safety and Loss Control for 10-4 Truck Insurance, and today we're going to talk about the crash indicator basic category. The crash indicator is sometimes kind of a forgotten category, just because the information of it's not public, but it is definitely a category that you want to pay attention to because it can kind of spiral out of control very quickly if you don't. So, the crash indicator it monitors all the crashes, the DOT recordable crashes that happen with the carrier. Now you might be saying, what exactly is a DOT recordable accident? Well, there's kind of three criteria pieces that go with it. Anything that happens on a public road, so interstates, highways, even parking lots sometimes are considered a public road, depending on circumstances, but anything that happens out there on the road that involves a fatality, someone gets killed in the crash, that involves an injury that results in someone having to go to the hospital from the crash, or anytime a vehicle is damaged to the point where it needs to be towed. Okay, those are the three kind of main criteria pieces for what a DOT recordable accident is. Now, when it comes to the crash indicator, there's a little bit of an unfair issue with it, because as of right now, it doesn't look as to who's at fault. If you are involved in a crash, it gets put on the crash indicator. Now, the FMCSA is looking into remedying that situation or that consequence, but as of right now, it's not widespread yet. So even if you're not the cause of the crash, even if you get T-boned, but you're involved in the crash, it still is going to show up on the crash indicator. There are three things that go into the score in your crash indicator category. How recent the crash was. If you have a lot of crashes recently, that's going to drive the score up. How severe the crashes were, that's going to drive the score up. And then how frequently you have crashes, just in general. The category goes back 2 years, like all the other basic categories. And if you have a lot of crashes in there, that's obviously going to drive the score up. If those crashes are severe, meaning you're at fault or someone was killed or injured or something like that, that's going to drive those scores up. So the easiest way to keep your crash indicator scores low, and I know this is a very simple way of putting it, is don't get into crashes. Okay, but sometimes it's not avoidable, and sometimes they just happen to you. So those are the three things, though, that they're going to look at: is how recent they were, how severe they were, and how frequently you have crashes. However, there are a number of things that you can do as a company owner that could help maybe mitigate some of these crashes that occur. One of the biggest ones is you could make sure that you do the proper pre-hire background checks. Okay, run the MVRs, which you need to do anyways. Run the PSPs, run CDLIS. Make sure that you are checking with previous employers as to how the driver did while they were driving. That's required. You should be doing that. But that's a big piece that you can do to make sure that you're putting the right drivers in the right situations. The other big thing you can do is make sure that you're training your dispatch and your management team that to understand situations that drivers might be going into and not to push them into dangerous situations. You know, if you're in the Midwest or basically on the upper side of the, America, we run into snow. We have inclement weather around all the time. Make sure that dispatch understands what the drivers are going through so that they're not saying, hey, you need to get this load there no matter what, and making the driver put themselves into a situation that maybe they wouldn't, but they don't want to get into trouble. Okay, so make sure that you hire the right drivers, and then make sure you train the dispatch team to understand what the drivers are going through out there as well. The other thing you could do is use the data that comes off your ELD and telematics and coach drivers if you see them getting into certain situations over and over again, or giving them a heads up saying, hey, you're going to a major metropolitan area. Make sure that you are double checking, triple checking everything. Give yourself enough space from the car in front of you. Always assume that the cars are not going to see you or that the cars are going to do something bad. That's a conversation I had to have a lot. Is semi-truck drivers would be like, well, I have the right of way. Yes, you do. In a lot of situations, you do have the right of way, but that car doesn't know how to drive. Okay, you do. So I would rather you give up your right of way in order for you to avoid a crash. And that's just something that sometimes drivers need reminding of, that you as a company owner or as a dispatcher can remind them of and say, look, yes, you're right, but I'd rather you not crash than be right, if that makes any sense. And then the other thing too that you can do is investigate all the crashes that do happen. Okay, you have a crash, don't just move on from it. Figure out what happened, why it happened. Was it a driver fault? Was it a road conditions fault? Was it just a geography fault? Were you in a big city or something like that? Why did that crash happen? Go back, try to do a root analysis of it and figure out why it happened and what can be done in order to have it not happen again. These are just a couple things that can help mitigate some of the crashes that might happen in there, because again, you want to try to keep that crash number low, because if it gets high, there's just really not much you can do other than give it time for it to fall off. And if you are a company that has a lot of crashes or have a lot of near misses, you really want to nip that in the bud as quick as possible, because if you are crashing, that obviously means that you are not a safe company out there on the road. And at the end of the day, that's what we all really want to be.